And hello once more, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and welcome to episode 13 of the Druids Dozen. Yeah, my name's John. I am a DJ at Assault, so I do a couple of radio shows. There's the Sunday Rock Show on BCFM Radio, 93.2 FM in the Bristol, UK area. And there's also, it's syndicated around the world on the Rock Radio Network. And there's also the Rock Druid Show on astroradio.earth, one of the world's leading science and music-based combination internet stations. And yeah, I've been DJing for many years. I've built up a massive record collection, and basically these videos are just me waving some albums I've pulled out in the racks at random in front of the camera and telling you a little bit about them and giving my own personal opinion of them. So, without further ado, we shall pass straight in with this one. Yeah, there's the front. This is, of course, You Can't Stop Rock and Roll from Twisted Sister from 1983. There's the back, and I've forgotten my glasses again. I should just get my glasses. There's my glasses. There's the back. Inner sleeves with D. Snyder and the boys. And then lyrics, etc. on the back there. Yeah, and I think this is a UK copy. Right, okay, no worries. Now, what's there to say about Twisted Sister that hasn't been said a million times already? Basically just a classic American kind of metal band. Band that kind of lost their edge a bit, I thought, as they've gone on a bit. I mean, compare albums like this and their first one, Under the Blade, to Love Is for Suckers and that, and not much, you know, and you can tell that the quality was dwindling a bit, but, you know, their first 3 or 4 albums, storming records. Now, I discovered Twisted Sister, like so many people in the UK, thanks to their single, I Am, I'm Me. It's become a bit of a kind of mantra of mine, you know. Who are you to look down at what I believe, etc. And I'll read you the lyrics, because it's a bit of a theme song of mine. Here we go. Who are you to look down on what I believe? I'm on your thinking and how you deceive. Well, you can't abuse me. I won't stand no more. Yes, I know the reasons. Yes, I know the score. I am, I'm me. I will, you'll see. I am and I'll be, because I am and I'm me. Yeah, all a song about being yourself. And that was a surprise hit single in the UK, 1983. It pile drived itself into the charts. Got to number, I think it was about 20 something. But anyway, I was on holiday at the time, and, you know, my parents had some friends all over the country, and sometimes we'll go and stay a couple of weeks with some friends of ours, and they'll come down and wherever we were living, come and spend a week or two with us. And we were up in a place called Maryport, up in Cumbria, up in the northwest, on the edge of the Lake District. And we were staying with some friends, a family called the Scraggses, long-term family friends, and they had a son that was a couple of years younger than me, and he was about 15 at the time. I must have been about 18, 19, and yeah, we were watching Top of the Pops. Twisted Sister came on, looking like that, performed I Am, I'm Me, and most of the people in the room, including both sets of parents, were going, what on earth is that? And there's me and Michael, and to a lesser extent his older sister Eileen, looking at the telly, looking at each other and going, wow, that's fantastic. And the following day we all piled down the local walls in town and brought the single. Been a fan ever since. Saw them live a year or two later, and yeah, been a massive fan. But anyway, this is their second album, and I say it was the one that broke them in Europe. Cracking album with not a weak track on it. It opens up with a cut called The Kids Are Back. The seminal track Like a Knife in the Back, which has been covered by Loads of death metal bands for some obscure reason. Ride to Live, Live to Ride, big motorbiking song. Aforementioned I Am, I'm Me. To the Power and the Glory, We're Not Gonna Make It. I'll Take You Alive. You Can't Stop Rock and Roll. Brilliant stuff. Okay, there is a rather kind of iffy ballad on here in Suzette's song, but You're Not Alone. But hey, you know, these were the early days of MTV, and record labels were kind of twisting bands' arms, even the heaviest of bands, to kind of appease the MTV gurus. Anyway, this is still a great album. I still love all the Twisted Sister stuff. And this is still the album I go back to given the choice. So yeah, 1983, Twisted Sister, You Can't Stop Rock and Roll, our first selection of the day. Okay, next up we'll go for a CD, we'll go for a bit of a classic. Yep, there is the front. It is of course Morrison Hotel by the Doors. There's the back. If I pull this out, there's just basically what would have been the artwork on the album on the inner sleeve there. And yeah, this is just a sort of Doors remastered catalogue thing from when these albums were remastered, which I think it's all back in there. Can't remember when these remasters were. I shall have a look for you in a second. Get in there, get in there, get in there. In 1999 the remasters came out, and the original version, this was 1970 of course. Now, Doors, seminal American band, going since the early 1960s, one of the first true American rock acts as opposed to, you know, rock and roll or pop. Jim Morrison, the iconic vocalist. Yeah, band I've always had a massive soft spot for. I don't say I've got all the Doors albums, I've got a fair smattering of them. And, yeah, I don't think I could pick a favourite, to be honest with you, because, you know, they've all got their merits. This one I like because of Roadhouse Blues. It's one of those songs that, you know, some of my favourite bands have covered, Blue Oyster Cult, Status Quo, a few others, and done cracking versions of it. And the original Doors version, kind of, it's a lovely little boogie kind of shuffle. Got some cracking lyrics on it. Also on here you've got Waiting for the Sun, Queen of the Highway, Indian Summer, Shipper Falls, Land Ho. Two brilliant tracks. Yeah, yeah, Morrison's vocals are, yeah, he does one of his finest performances on this album. The rest of them, I can't think of his name, keyboard player and the bass player and the drummer. Oh, I'm terrible with names, mate. But anyway, the rest of the band also on form. Just a great album. For all you young'uns here that haven't really experienced the Doors, do yourself a favour and go and check some Doors out. If you want to know where kind of, yeah, sort of like rock and psychedelia and even prog rock to a certain extent started. Yeah, the Doors. Morrison Hotel, 1970. Great album. Okay, moving on. And here's one. I've mentioned this one in passing. A few episodes ago. But I eventually got around to dragging it out the racks and talking about it. It's Burn This Town by Battleaxe. There's the front. There's the back. Don't think it's got a inner sleeve, no. Now, Battleaxe came from Sunderland, up there in northeast of England. Really good metal band. Sort of like influences, sort of like the new wave of British heavy metal, influences from the likes of sort of like Rush, but also kind of heavy bands like Sabbath and Saxon, etc. Just a good old heavy metal band. Now, after a kind of couple of fairly successful, I think it was a self-released EP they brought out, led them getting signed to Music for Nations, which was one of the big UK kind of rock and metal indie labels at the time, and recorded this album, Burn This Town. Now, the official story goes is that they got their mate, what was it, Arthur Ball, no relation to the World War I fighter pilot, I hasten to add, as far as I'm aware at least, to come up with an album cover. He got out his felt tips, and lo and behold, he produced this travesty. And the band have always claimed that it got sent to the record company as a proof of concept, but then they ran with it without asking the band's permission. Now, these things can happen. Something similar happened with an entire album by Mournblade. But there's a couple of things that don't quite ring true, because normally, having been in a signed band myself, when you get to that stage of an album release, you normally get proof of concepts come back and kind of test prints, etc. Why didn't they intercept it at that point? Why is it signed? I know quite a few artists, and very rare, graphic artists and that, they don't normally sign their proof of concept works. It makes me think that, maybe there was some drugs involved, large amounts of alcohol, I don't know. Consequently, it came out with this cover, and a lot of people rate this as one of the worst album covers of all time. Definitely one of the worst of the new wave of British heavy metal. The album's been reissued since with a couple of different, more acceptable covers. But to be honest with you, I like this. I keep going back to this, these videos about the whole new wave of British heavy metal being kind of metal done with a punk attitude. And you look at some of the punk albums and EPs and singles that came out around about that time. Stuff that was just kind of, your mate's got some felt tips, he'll do it. Gives it that kind of vibe. And yeah, it's terrible, but there's also, but on the other hand, it's cute. That's the best way I can put it. Cute. I like it. So I know Battleaxe have reformed over the last few years. So, guys, I do like this album cover, and quite a lot of us do. And this is a good example of don't judge a book by the cover. The album cut, the artwork may be killer appalling, but the music is brilliant. Thor Thunder Angel, what a cracking track. But all of them are pretty good on here. Dirty Rocker, Overdrive, Burn This Town, Ready to Deliver, Running Out of Time, Battleaxe, Star Maker. Everyone's a bit of an underground metal classic. You got Dave King, the vocalist, superb set of pipes on him. Steve Hardy knows how to kind of whittle and shred on his six string. Brian Smith, Ian Thompson, superb tight rhythm section. Yeah, they went on to produce a follow-up album to this, Power from the Universe, which got a better album cover, and is about on the par quality-wise, musically. I'll come to that one week, no doubt. But anyway, yeah, I do recommend it. If you can find a copy with the original artwork, have it for your shock value, so you can wave in front of your mates and go, look at this, woo! Or just get one of the reissue ones with one of the reissue album covers. It is out on CD. It's had several CD pressings. So, yeah. Burn This Town by Battleaxe. recommended. Okay, reaching over for a another CD, and there is the front. This is The Ruin of Man by Sacred Mother Tongue. There's the back. There's the band. And I think the rest of the booklet is primarily lyrics. Yeah, it's primarily lyrics, the rest of the booklet. Bit more artwork and some credits. Now, Sacred Mother Tongue came from somewhere outside London. I want to say Reading, but it might be somewhere like Watford or Luton. I don't know, but it's somewhere on the kind of outer London, sort of like commuter belt ring type thing. And these guys were kind of, briefly, one of the leading lights in the British kind of domestic metal movement. Got themselves signed to Transcend Records, and so they recorded this album. I'm not sure if there's anything before this independently, but this was their Transcend labels. Recorded this album, toured excessively, released a follow-up of which the name escapes me off the top of my head. I've got it in the racks at the back there somewhere, but completely brain fade on it. Then ran into a bit of a problem. They got to the point where they were part-time. You know, may surprise many of you people outside the music business, but you know, these days even fairly established bands work part-time. I think all you, not accusing you personally, unless you are one that's kind of a guilty partner, unless you are the ones that are doing all the illegal downloads and pirating and that, you can't make money out of music anymore unless you're in the top 2%. Basically, the way it used to work was that, you know, you would tour fairly cheap, you know, keep your, you know, maybe even take a loss on your tours because you can guarantee that when your album came out, you could make your money back and make a living off your album sales. Napster, MP3, pirating, Pirate Bay, etc. changed all that. Nowadays, you know, they reckon for every legitimate download or physical sale, a band has at least 100 illegal downloads. I know I've seen it with my band Alien Stashed when we released our most recent album, Probe. It was out on Russian pirate sites within 24 hours, and you can't stamp on them all. But anyway, consequently, you know, these days you have to kind of, which is the reason why concert ticket prices have gone up, you have to kind of make your money off your tours to compensate for the fact that your product's going to might even lose your money, because you know, you still got studio fees and packaging and artwork and, you know, physical pressing and distribution to pay for. So yeah, and even then with the touring, unless you're piling in, you know, large venues and filling them out every night, there's not a great deal of money in touring these days. So Sacred Mother Tongue got themselves in, or found themselves in a position that happens to so many bands these days, that they couldn't make enough money off being in Sacred Mother Tongue to kind of go full time. The demand was there for them to go full time, but they couldn't, you know, guarantee that they'll make it pay. And like, you know, most of the people, you know, us musicians are human. They have families to support, they have mortgages to pay. So basically the band did a kind of cost analysis and decided that they couldn't afford to carry on because of all you bastards out there doing illegal downloads. Not you personally, but the bastards out there that are doing illegal downloads. So they called it quits. So a couple of them surfaced in other bands, but they did leave a couple of good albums behind. This one's pretty damn good. what's his name? Is it Andy? Somebody or other, the guitarist, who's a bit of a guitar hero when it comes to the push. When the push comes to shove. What is the guy's name? I said I'm terrible with names there. Andy James, the guitarist, become a bit of a guitar hero, an indie demand session player. He's superb on here. I've got a couple of solo albums as well. He's a great guitarist. On here you've got 2800, crack, my favourite track on the album. But then you've got The Assassin, Numb, My Sins Have Become My Fears, Final Idea, The Hourglass. Not a weak track on it. And it's just a shame, you know, that the situation is that bands like Sacred Mother Tongue are being driven to break up by music piracy. And yeah, and I do hold all you illegal downloaders out there guilty of that. I don't illegally download myself. Okay, I'm in a lucky position. I get a lot of my new stuff comes through as promos, and even kind of archive stuff. I can normally contact a record company and say, hey, send me a copy. But I try to avoid doing that with archive material and buy it, because you know, especially from smaller bands, you know, because we are paying, because it's us the fans that are paying these guys bills. So you might still be able to get this available. Recommend it if you can. Sacred Mother Tongue, The Ruin of Man. And I apologise for the rant about music piracy, but it is something that sticks in my craw. Okay, next up, a bit of prog rock for you. The Ember by Haze. There's the front. There's the back. Don't think there's anything in here. No, nothing in here. Yeah, came out in 1985, this one. Haze were a three-piece prog rock band working out of Sheffield. They shared a house together, they had a studio in the cellar, and they had a dancing mole, the animatronic mole that used to jump up and down on top of the keyboard players' keyboards. Just a great band. I saw them live a few times, and yeah, very prog. You got the, trying to think the best way of describing them. There's definitely an early Rush vibe in here, but also bits of Emerson, Lake and Palmer, maybe hints of Camel and Caravan, that kind of vibe. Anyway, just a great band. As I had a great privilege of seeing them live a few times back in the day. They were just very, very entertaining. And this is their 1983 EP, The Ember. There's an album before this called Sailor V, and at least one other album called The Stoughton Bottle, which came out after it. But this was my gateway into being into Haze. Only a 4-tracker. You got The Ember, which is quite a kind of pompous keyboard driven, but not pompous in a negative way, just kind of overblown and huge sounding. The Ceiling's Coming Down, which is a bit of a party number about getting drunk, and was actually recorded live at a party at the band's house. Freedom Road, big anthem. Freedom Road, paved with blood and cold the stone. And then Mounting, which is a kind of almost that ethereal, atmospheric kind of trip out track at the end. Yeah, I know these guys have reformed from time to time, but I don't think they're still together at the moment. So, but anyway, Haze might be a bit obscure. You might have to do some digging, but go get. They're good. Okay, next up, another CD, and this is quite one of the 2 Bristol-based bands on the list today. This is Gouranga. Band took their name from the original Grand Theft Auto game. Those of you that ever played it remember the Buddhist monks you could run over. If you got the whole lot in one pass, you get Gouranga would appear across the screen. But anyway, that's where they got their name from. Kind of metal hardcore fusion band. Sorry, there's the front, of course. There's the back, if you can see it. There's an inlay card on this. Yeah, there's the inside. And there's the back. Now, this is a 4-track EP with a number of live bonus material on here. I think this was their second EP. I know I've got something. I know I've got at least one other by them. I'd say they're a 3-piece kind of metally hardcore fusion mashup type band. You know, that bit where metal and hardcore kind of meet, without being metalcore, because they didn't have the clean and dirty vocals. Andy Bradford guitarist and vocal, Crooked Jelly drums, and Joe Eggard on bass and Joe Eggard on drums. Great band. The studio tracks on here, Bile, It Came to This, Rose and Time, and my favourite cut, Rife Machine. They riff, they bludgeon, they rock. They're pretty listenable, pretty damn good. Production by a guy called Chris Norris, who's a Bristol producer, is pretty good. And yeah, and mastering by a guy called A Chant. I can't remember who that is. I've come across him before though. Yeah, good stuff. Then you got some live recordings. Don't know exactly where the live tracks are recorded. Oh yeah, the Cooler. Oh god, the Cooler. Yeah, long gone Bristol kind of alternative punk, alternative kind of studenty type venue up on Park Street. Yeah, I played there once, a bit of a weird gig, but anyway, 18th, and although the recording quality is not quite as good as the studio tracks, it's still pretty damn good overall. Just for the performances, 1850s Regression, corking song, probably the best of the 3 live ones. There's a live version of Rose and Time and a cut called Pass It Down, which I think was from their earlier demo. Overall, damn fine band. Again, this one, I think these guys have long since gone their separate ways. I may be wrong. If I am, please correct me in the comments down there, or there if you're on Facebook. They're on Facebook, they're on YouTube. And but you know, but if you can ever get your hands on a copy of this, not saying it's going to be easy, but and you like your kind of hardcore metal fusion. Pardon me, I've got hiccups here. This one, it's a good one. Put it that way, it's a good one. Need a quick slurp of coffee, I think. Nothing special, just cheap Lidl's instant. It does the job. It's got caffeine in it and it's hot and it keeps me alert. Okay, next up, this is there's the front. This is Censored by Hawklords. There's the front, there's the back. And don't think there's any pictures of the Hawklords in here. No, it's just lyrics and artwork, etc. Now, when did this one come out? Oh, of course, 2014. Now, those of you who don't know, the Hawklords, it's Harvey Bainbridge, Dave Pearce, Jerry Richards, Adrian Shaw and Ron Tree, many of which are former members of Hawkwind. Now, those of you who don't know, Hawkwind have had literally nearly 200 people have passed through the ranks over the years. The only constant one being Dave Brock, and you know, speaking of knowing quite a few ex-members of Hawkwind, Dave Brock is the reason they've had 200 members pass through Hawkwind. Now, on my couple of meetings with Mr. Brock, I've never had a problem with him, but apparently I've never worked with the guy in Hawkwind, so yeah, I'll leave it at that, because the guy has a reputation of being a bit litigious as well. So, you know, I've not had a problem, I just heard that other people have. I'll leave it at that, allegedly. Anyway, now, the original Hawklords were formed in 1978. It was Hawkwind's attempt to kind of get out of a record deal they didn't like with I think it was Crest Records at the time, or Charisma. One of the, well, either Crest or Charisma Records. Basically, they broke the band up and they changed the name to Hawklords. Did an album called 25 Years On. Cracking album. Robert Calvert vocal, brilliant. Fast forward to the mid 2000s, and some of the guys that were kind of been in both Hawkwind and played with that Hawklords album decided that they were going to they wanted to get back together, do some Hawkwind material, write some new material. And I think it was Harvey Bainbridge, the keyboard player, suddenly remembered that when he left the band, he left Hawklords. Sorry, he was in a band called Hawklords as well as Hawkwind, and Dave Brock hadn't renewed the copyright on the name Hawklords, or the trademark, whatever. So, pulled it together. People like Ron Tree, who was on the Love in Space album, and a few other, Adrian Shaw, the old bass player, etc. Decided to put together a new Hawklords lineup and go out doing kind of Calvert era Hawkwind tracks. Saw them live a couple of times. They were absolutely brilliant. And one of my proudest musical moments is that twice in my musical career I've shared a stage with Hawklords. First of all, on the tour that they did to promote this album at the Fleece in Bristol back in 2014. On my birthday as well. What a birthday present. Sort of playing with and getting drunk with, well, not getting drunk with, but drinking with various members of the Hawklords on your birthday. And then a couple of years later at the Solar Sphere Festival, we were special guests to them on the, I think it was a Saturday night lineup. Overall, great band, and this is probably, got quite a few of their albums now. They've got about 5 or 6 out. This is my favourite. Not just because I supported them on the tour, it's just that I think this one just hangs together brilliantly. You got Open Up, State of Emergency, Damned. Yeah, it just goes, it rocks on. Just rocks on. There's 56 minutes of playtime. There's a track called Induction, which has got a Michael Moorcock lyric written especially for him. My favourite track on here, Sonic 7 Kiss, and Catwalk Shake is another brilliant cut. Just, you know, it's the spirit of that late 70s Hawkwind, the Robert Calvert fronted era. It just shines through. Ron Tree, despite being his own man, he is such a kind of natural successor to Robert Calvert. It's a shame that he's no longer with the band, but the guy was just, you know, he's as close to Calvert you can get without being Calvert, still being Ron Tree, you know what I mean? But does a superb, his vocals on here are superb. Harvey Bainbridge's keyboards play, well, Harvey's a brilliant keyboard player anyway. Adrian Shaw on bass, the rest of the band, it rocks. Yeah, so Hawklords are still going. The lineup's changed a couple of times since this. Maybe they got a bit of the old Hawkwind bug going on there. But they're still banging out great material, which unfortunately is more like I say for Hawkwind these days. Hawkwind haven't released anything that's really impressed me for knocking on 30 years. Yeah, shame. But anyway, Hawklords are still releasing stuff that impressed me. So, and this is one I'd recommend you start with. Censored from 2014. Good stuff. Okay, next up, we're going to keep it a bit hippie. We're going to go flying back in time though. Oh, and again, this is an old knackered record sleeve. Brought second hand back in the early 80s and been loved to death, this one. There's the front. It's Albion Band, Under the Rose. There's the back. There is in here an insert, but I think it's a record company. Yeah, Spindrift Records, who were a I don't think I've got anything else off this album, because, you know, Spindrift Records were a folk label, because this is a folk rock album. Now, those of you that don't know, the Albion Band were a band put together by Ashley Hutchins, former Fairport Convention bass player. He's joined on here with Kathy Lasserie on vocals, Phil Beer on basically things with strings, guitars, mandolins, etc. Trevor Foster on drums, and there's an additional guitarist of Doug Mortar. Plus there's a guest saxophone player, Matt Clifford. Some of which may or may not have done time in Fairport Convention. I don't know. Fairport Convention are not a closed book to me, they're just a road I've yet to explore. I like what I hear, but, you know, so many bands, so little time. I'm only just getting into Pentangle, for God's sake. But anyway, this is the only album that I possess by the Albion Band. I wish I could have more, but their stuff is pretty obscure and hard to find. And but this album is a classic. I've mentioned a few times about albums that should be internationally household names in everybody's record collection, but unfortunately are obscurities. This is one of them. This is probably, I've heard a couple of the other Albion Band albums, although I don't possess any of them, and this is by far their most rocky album. This is their striding slightly towards almost Jethro Tull territory. And what an album it is. There's, I say it can be a bit of a cliche, but I do mean it when I said there isn't a duff track on this album. You've got Tomorrow and Tomorrow, where it's sort of like quoting Shakespearean kind of lyrics kind of thing, almost like Shakespearean in feel. Words, which is these words are yours. Yeah, it's about touring in northern Denmark apparently. Because I remember the lyrics came back to me then. Rascals, which is my favourite track on the album, which is this is a big kind of hail up to all the Rascals really, your musicians, your actors, your performers, your comedians, your clowns, anyone that kind of doesn't fit into normal society and are just having a great fun and entertaining people while they're doing it. Woodlands of England, a superb ecological song about, well, the woodlands of England, and you know how valuable the woodlands are, both historically and to the modern spiritual side of it. Dance Under the Rose, which is almost like a medieval kind of song about dancing and love. I've missed a couple of these tracks out, but they're because of basic. And then the Sailor Dress Hornpipe and the Shipwreck, big kind of more, probably the most traditional folk song on this album. Kathy Lasserie's vocals are spine-tingling. There are parts on here where she puts a lump in my throat and a shiver down my spine. The rest of the musicians, it's spotless, it's flawless, it's great. Yeah, just absolutely mind-blowing stuff. I picked this up just on the off chance because I'd heard the name mentioned by a folky friend of mine in a second-hand shop back in, I see the album came out in 1981. So, must have been about 83, 84 I got this. And I've loved this album to death ever since. I wish I could retire it and get a digital copy. I have digitised it myself, but not particularly brilliantly. But yeah, I've yet to find a CD or digital copy of this album, which is a crying shame, because one of my all-time favourites. A great, great album. If you want to track down a copy of yourself, please do so. You'll love yourself for doing it. Hope you have more success in finding a CD or digital MP3 copy than I have. And if you do find one, let me know. Yeah, Albion Band, Under the Rose. Amazing! Okay, next up, another CD and something a bit local again. Here we go. The Book of Quests by Dr. Nut. There's the front with the keep at Blaze Castle, which is it's a folly in a park in North Bristol. And there's the inner sleeve. There's no gatefold or anything, it's just a folded piece of paper. And yeah, there's another picture of the band. Now, what can I say about Dr. Nut? Now, this lot, they're a kind of slightly folk influenced metal band. So they're out of Bristol. 5-piece bunch of nutters. I'm not sure whether they're still together or not. At the moment, they're one of these bands that kind of, you know, you think they've broken up because you haven't heard from them for years. And next thing, they're doing a couple of gigs and brought out a new album or a new CD or a new EP or something. So I will turn around and safely say that as far as I'm aware, Dr. Nut are very much in the unknown file. No doubt, you know, members of Dr. Nut, if they see this, will let me know what they're doing at the moment. But this lot, I'll say folk metal, power metal. Definitely a bunch of lads that played too much Dungeons and Dragons at college. I can empathise, I used to be a D&D player myself. Lots of their stuff is, you know, refers to orcs and goblins and elves and mighty quests and knights and rescuing maidens and ladders up castle walls, etc. Yeah, on this one you've got the closing cut, the castle walls, which is a bit of a epic kind of, it is an epic. Mad Mozart, which is a I can't remember exactly the Mozart song it is, but it's a bit of a Mozart tune, metalised. My Good King, the Regicide, Blessed Be Thy Name, the Lament. It's just pretty good stuff. I said these guys have got a couple of other albums and EPs out. As to their current availability, Lord knows. But do some digging, and if you do kind of catch one of their periodic Let's Get Back Together Again sets, go see them live as well. Absolutely amazing band. These guys can play for about 3 or 4 hours and keep it entertaining to the max. Yeah. Dr. Nut, The Book of Quests. Okay, next up, yeah, the Cult Sonic Temple. There's the front. There's the back. I apologise for the Buzzy Hoover in the background if you can hear him. Put it out. There's the Cult. Sitting in a desert by a beat up old American muscle car, whatever it is. There's the there's just basic album credits on there. Yeah. Oh, special guest from Eric Singer and Iggy Pop. I completely forgot that. Now, Those of you who don't know, Cult, what again, seminal classic British hard rock band. Started out as was it Southern Death Cult and then Death Cult, very much in, sort of almost like goth in their early days. Did an album, the title of which keeps forgetting me. It's one with Resurrection Joe on it, which is a bit of a goth album. And then they kind of went a bit more rocky. Still kept it, always have kept a bit of a kind of slightly kind of dark, almost gothic vibe to them. But you know, their albums like Love, Electric, this one, etc. Sorry, sample it. Great albums. Lost track a bit on an album called Ceremony, a bit after this, went a bit meh. Although then they broke up for a while, came back, and the stuff they're doing now is not too bad. But anyway, I do like the Cult, especially the earlier stuff, and Sonic Temple. Again, one of my favourite albums of all time. Definitely my favourite Cult album. It's just got a track list to die for on here. Sun King, Fire Woman, American Horse, Eddie Cowbaby. My favourite Cult song of all times on here, Sweet Soul Sister. Soul Asylum, New York City, Automatic Blues, Soldier Blue, Wake Up Time for Freedom. Just every track's a banger. Ian Ashby's vocals are kind of, he retains that kind of dark gothic vibe, but got almost like a Bon Scott kind of approach. Like a gothic, yeah, that's a good way of describing it. Gothic Bon Scott. What's his name? Yeah, Billy Duffy's guitar work. Kind of like, I would liken him to the hard rock equivalent of Johnny Marr, because like Johnny Marr from the Smiths could do all that great chiming kind of clean stuff. He can do all the chiming but keep it down and dirty as well. Yeah, not much else to say on here. If you're not into the Cult, or you haven't really taken much notice of the Cult, you know, any of their albums up to and including this one are worth checking out. And this is my favourite, so this is, I'm obviously going to say, this is the place to start. Yeah, the Cult, Sonic Temple. Cracking record. Okay, next up, we'll have this one. It is, of course, Deep Purple's 1985 comeback album, Perfect Stranger. There's the front. There's the back. Got the pull out gatefold with the lyrics, pictures of Deep Purple. I from back in the day, or no, that's kind of modern reformation back in the studio Purple. Yeah, there's the disc, should you be interested. Now this is another one that I have on vinyl, but I acquired at some point the CD copy. And actually, I'll tell you why. I'm looking at it now. I can tell you why I acquired the CD copy. It's got the Son of Alaric on here, the full version. I've also got the Perfect Strangers 7-inch single that's got the an edited version of Son of Alaric, which is it's a big, long, John Lord-driven instrumental, big Hammond organ-y sort of stuff. On here, there's the full 10.5-minute version, so that's the reason I bought the CD. Yeah, this is the classic Deep Purple Mark II lineup. Ian Gillan, Richie Blackmore, Roger Glover, Ian Pace, John Lord. And, you know, this lineup ceased to exist in 1983-84. You know, Gillan and Roger Glover left, in came originally Hughes and Glenn Hughes and David Coverdale. His name I don't like mentioning these days, Coverdale. And then Blackmore left after a couple of albums, did one album with Tommy Bolin, and then broke up. Well, the classic lineup, whether it was for the mullah or whether it was for genuine musical reasons, unfinished business, got back together, released this. Great album. An album that does hold up head and shoulders along with anything the Mark II Purple lineup recorded back in the day. Knocking on Your Back Door, Perfect Strangers, Gypsy Kiss, Hungry Days, Not Responsible. It's a great album, and you know, and I thought that when it came out, and I played it not long before I started recording this, and yeah, my opinion hasn't changed. I still found this whole record very enjoyable. Of course, after this there was the Purple were back together again, and once again the old internal differences have risen. People have left, people have been sacked, people have been calling each other arseholes on national television. You know, internal politics. I mean, unfortunately, when you're in a band as high profile as Purple, sometimes your dirty washing will get aired in public. But anyway, leaving all the internal band politics aside, yeah, great album. Easily ranks alongside anything the early 70s Purple have done, and in my opinion probably one of the strongest that they've done since the reformation. So yeah, Deep Purple, Perfect Strangers. Yeah, good album. And our final one for today, I mentioned Jethro Tull a bit earlier. It's Jethro Tull time. Band I've always had a massive, big lot of time for. Seen them live once. Had the great privilege of interviewing Ian Anderson a couple of years ago, which was a chop on and a half, I'll tell you. Only on the phone, but it's a lovely bloke. We were chatting for ages, and yeah, I have most of the Tull back catalogue. I'm not saying I love every Tull album. There's one or two, especially since, you know, the 90s onwards, that I can take or leave. But overall, I would still class myself as a massive Tull fan. And this album, 1987's, is it? Yeah, 87's Crest of a Knave is, in my opinion, one of the highlights of their career. Now, the previous Tull album list was 1983's Under Wraps. An album that I know a lot of people diss on, but I don't mind it. It's something that Tull have always been a band that have never been afraid to experiment. And on Under Wraps, they had the guy from used to be keyboard player in Simple Minds, or the guy went on to Simple Minds, one of the two. But anyway, experimenting with kind of a bit more kind of poppy kind of sound. Got some great tracks on it, even though it's not a classic album, but still not bad. And then Ian Anderson started to develop polyps on his vocals. He went off, took a couple of years out, series of throat ops, and then in 1987 came back with Dave Pegg and Martin Barr to record this. And I've got to admit, it was a bit of a shocker, because as a result of the surgery, Mr. Anderson's vocals had dropped an octave, meaning that he sounds uncannily like Mark Knopfler from Dire Straits on this album. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. Mark Knopfler's got a pretty good distinctive voice, but hearing someone that sounded a bit like Mark Knopfler fronting Jethro Tull was a bit of a kind of odd, to say the least, until he got used to it. Anyway, this album came out, and I remember buying Steel Monkey, the single, got it on picture disc around here somewhere, and really liking it. Couldn't wait for the album that came out. Still got the hiccups. Yeah, I think I was on holiday up in Skegness with a couple of mates when this album came out, but I still had to go on the day of release and pick it up, and I'm really glad that I did. Really glad that I did. I said, my opinion, one of the highlight albums of Tull's career. Opens up with the aforementioned Steel Monkey, all about people working on construction carts. Cuts into Farm on the Freeway, about, you know, roads driving through farmyards and rural life being spoilt by, you know, technology. Jumpstart. I don't know, one of Anderson's kind of strange explorations. She said she was a dancer. If I believed her, it was my business. She could tell me a thing or two about rock and roll. And then overall, you got the second side, Budapest. Song about touring in Hungary and encounters with various people there. Hot nights in Budapest. She said she was a middle distance runner, international competition in a year. Yeah, I think she was a middle distance runner, though the translation wasn't clear. Could have been a budding stately hero with national competition for a year. She was a good enough reason for a party. Well, you couldn't keep up on a hard track mile. She ran a perfect circle and wore a perfect smile that night in Budapest. It's an evocative song that just kind of drifts along, draws you in. Got kind of quite a rocky, dancey middle section, but absolutely brilliant. And then after that, my all-time favourite Jethro Tull track. And, you know, Jethro Tull have done some corking songs, but there's only two that kind of put a lump in my throat. Heavy Horses off the Heavy Horses album, and Mountain Men off this one. Now, I'm feeling a bit choked up even talking about this album. It's about Ian Anderson's relocation to the Isle of Skye, where you kind of get away in the mountains and running trout farms or salmon farms, whatever he runs up there. And his encounters with some of the local people up there, you know, about the guy that's poaching his, but he's going to turn a blind eye because, you know, who is eat a fasting eye, the right to take a fish once in a while. And it goes on to talk about the people from the islands, you know, a culture that's as far from being English or British as you can get, yet going off to die in wars for English causes like the Falklands, and it mentions Al Alamein, etc. The lyrics are some of the most evocative Ian Anderson's ever come up with. The music is as sympathetic to the lyrics as it could possibly write. My opinion, like I said, one of the two Jethro Tull tracks guaranteed to put a tear in my eye. Like I said, I'm lumping up even talking about it. I'm going to have to play it and have a good cry in a minute. Yeah, I'm a softie, I know. Brilliant song. Ends up, but then any kind of pathos and melancholy is rounded out neatly with Raising Steam, the final cut, which is just about being like a train and pressing on regardless, whether there's snow or hills in front of you. Just keep raising steam and pressing on and living your life to the max how you like it. Overall, this album is a masterpiece. It's a work of art. It's a work of genius. Yeah, if it's not in your collection, you like a bit of Tull, go get. Anyway, that's it. So it's a bit of a longer one than normal this week, but these things happen. And also a big thanks to all of you that have commented, especially on Facebook and a couple on YouTube. And some of you have gone out and bought some of the albums I've been reviewing on my recommendation and saying you're lovely. I feel chuffed. So, nice to hear from you. Give me your feedback. Comments are down there on YouTube. They're going to be over there on Facebook. And until next week, peeps, I loves every single last one of you, and I'm out of here. Bye!